recorded. So, I mean, you don't have to say anything or ask any questions, but if you do, possibly that might, well, it will come up on the recording. Okay, so just to introduce myself, I've got some other colleagues here with me as well. So my name's Mark, and I am a senior lecturer at BCU on the early years and primary teaching team, and I specialise in teaching English. But one of my other roles is a year one lead for the BAQTS primary teaching, the undergraduate route in. So me and two other colleagues who I don't believe are with us today. But we sort of manage and make sure everybody's very happy in terms of students on the year one part of their course. And we also have with us today Anne and Yorgos. Anne oversees lots to do with placement, and Yorgos does as well, but from a more sort of administrative point of view. He's on the placement team, and they're going to be talking to you after I've raced through everything about things to do. Yorgos will be talking to you about how to access the portals and so on. Okay. And here's Anne. You can see Anne. She's just popped up. She's popped off again. Okay. Okay. So obviously today, we're not going to go on and on and on, but we try to be concise, but try to give you everything that you need. The slides that we're sharing with you here, or my slides, are the same slides that we've shared with students. I have abridged it, so it's not every slide, because not every slide is particularly pertinent to your role in this, but it's the same ones that we share with students. So you can see, and I can talk to you about the conversations that in the placement briefing that we've had with students. So you're getting that same message and you understand what they've been told. Okay. So we'll make a start. So these are the contact details for myself and the other year one lead. There is a pastoral lead for year one, but they're not so much involved in the administrative side of things. They're more, as I say, on a pastoral note. So it's me and Kenise Cameron. So if you do have any questions about placement, we may have to ask other colleagues if they're tricky questions like Anne or Yorgos. But in the first instance, while we're waiting for students to arrive to you and you're not sure who the lead mentor, the person from university who's supporting that placement is, then you can obviously email us if you have any questions. Once students are in placement, that they should know, or they will know, and you will know who the lead mentor is, and you probably more often than not you already know that, because it's the same lead mentor for your school regardless of the students in there. Okay, but in the meantime, we're there to help you if you need that. Okay, just to be clear about placement roles. So sometimes this language does change, and I know you're very used to working in schools, how terminology changes, and it's no different in HE and ITE. So placement mentor, if you see that in documentation from BCU, that means the class teacher. Okay, so the placement mentor is the class teacher in the classroom, so, the one who's really working closely with our students. Okay, the professional mentor would be the person in school again who oversees student placements. So that that might be an assistant head or a deputy normally. I mean, I've got lots of other responsibilities, I know, but one of their smaller responsibilities might be to oversee placements in school from students from BCU and other universities maybe. And then the lead mentor, that was formerly called the university tutor. That's somebody like me, like Anne, like Kenise, and any of my other colleagues who are lecturers at university, but we're there to sort of oversee the placement and ensure that all runs smoothly. Okay, so if you see that terminology, then you're clear about what that is. So in terms of the role of the lead mentor, so that's be somebody like me coming in to support placement. They would be your first point of contact in regards to placement. So any issues, questions, or whatever it might be, it's the lead mentor that you can ask those of. There'd be like some things you might want to ask the student, but you can understand there will be situations that you might want to talk to the lead mentor. Okay. remember, these slides are what we shared with students. This is why it's worded in this way. But it says they're your point of contact, but they're also your point of contact as well as the students. So we've explained to the students that they will be coming into school to see how they're getting on. Okay. And after their preliminary days, they'll come in and they'll do a sign-off meeting with them. I'm going to get to the end of this slide and then backtrack a little bit, I think. And then during the block placement, they're going to come into school and they're going to, they're usually one joint observation, and they do a review meeting and a progress meeting. Then we've reminded students that they need to, as they would in school, just the same with their lead mentor, that they, stay in contact with them. I'm just going to backtrack here a little bit. And sorry, I did forget to mention that this particular briefing is very much focused on the visiting days and not the block placement. So we do find in year one, when we are sharing all of this information with students, it's too much to talk to them about visiting days and then block placement, and then just send them off for weeks on end, and and not come back to it. So we have a placement briefing about visiting days, the days they're coming into school where they're not teaching but they're getting to know the class, and that's Mondays and Tuesdays. I think there's an odd Friday where they come in, and then we do another briefing with them where we talk about block placement. Okay, and it's the same for mentor briefings. We do one in year one, we do one for visiting days, and then one for block placement a little bit later on down the line. So we do touch on, you can see here in the slide, things that will happen in block placement, but it's very much spoken to them about what will happen on visiting days. Okay, so that was just about the role of the lead mentor overall in terms of the whole placement. Then we've spoken to them about the role of the class teacher, and obviously we said you're going to be based in the same, or the placement mentor, you're going to be based in the same class as them, so that it's not that your placement mentor is in a different class, and they'll be working closely with you to help you and support you and advise you. It talks here about weekly meetings and weekly observations, but as you can see, that says that's not yet, that's when your block placement starts. Okay, so remember this briefing and the same briefing that we're given to students just about visiting days, where that doesn't need to happen as yet. Okay, and as it says here, your class teacher, placement mentor will keep the lead mentor up to date on your progress. Okay, so that doesn't mean to say we need to have regular meetings with you. We're just letting students know that at points, it's not that we don't ever talk to each other. There would be the odd conversation about how things going, and do you need any advice around how the visiting placement works, that sort of thing. Okay, right, let's skip on to the next one. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but we've shared with students how the placement has two parts. It has visiting days and it has a block placement, but we're very much focused on the visiting days with what we've told them and what we're sharing with you today. So we've tried to be clear with them about what the purpose of those days are. And obviously, as you well know, that's just about students getting familiar with, in a big sense, the community around the school, the families, getting used to how the school functions, getting used to their class and how that works, and the routines in that, and the children in their class and the other adults that they'll be working with. So essentially, that's what it is. And we do much talk to them about what does that mean. It's all very well saying build relationships with children and make positive starts to your relationship with other adults in the school, but we do, we don't just leave it at that. We do talk very specifically about them as to what that looks like, and I'm going to come on to some of those things. So you can see here where we've made a start. We've said, about understanding school routines and so forth. So they've had those conversations. We've shared with them the dates that the school placement will take part on. Now, they've had these dates since the very first day at university, but obviously, every time we do these things, we highlight to them what's called the indicative timetable, so the overall timetable. So they had these dates from the very beginning of the year, but obviously, we would highlight to them and clarify with them, these are your visiting days, this is where your block placement is. So you can see here, their visiting days are Monday and Tuesday, but we do have that one Friday in the visiting days block where they're also in on school. Okay. The other thing to be aware of is that, as I say, you may well be aware, the last government made some quite radical changes to ITE provision, as they often have done over the past number of years across the educational landscape, not just at HE, but in primary settings and secondary settings as well. And one of those things that we were required to put into place was what are called ITAPs, so intensive teaching and practice. And so all ITE providers have to do this. It's not just us. Wolverhampton, Worcester, and all the other ones in the local area are required to do this. And you can see where those sit. There's no need for you to have a detailed understanding about what that they involve, but essentially what it is we would choose very specific areas of teaching and learning, and we would do some university input around that, and then students will go into school and practice very small specific elements of that. And you can see through the visiting days there's a behaviour ITAP, so students may well be coming, they will hopefully they will be coming into school and asking to do some very small scale tasks, little bits of small scale teaching, not lessons or anything like that, but small things that will enable them to practice the things that we've spoken to them about at university. Okay, so it goes through here a few slides, and again, remember, this is what we've shared with students and reminded them about. So just some information for you there. Intensive training and practice, that's what an ITAP is. So this is the wording around it. So it's intensive training and practice, allows for deep exploration of key elements of professional practice with consideration of research informed practice and context specific application. So as I say, that's just a complicated way of saying we're going to teach you things at university, and then you're going to go into school and you're going to try them out. Okay, that's essentially what it is. So they have two. They have a behaviour one in the visiting days, and then they have a phonics one that sits in the block placement. Okay, and there's just another slide there that we shared with them, about that they've had all this before. A lot of it is just reminders really around this particular ITAP thing. Okay, so that's that. We've spoken to them about contacting you. So they have the very large majority of them. There's just a few that haven't, for a range of reasons. Some haven't completed safeguarding training and things you don't need to worry about, but the very large majority have had their school placements now. Now we asked them to phone you. I think some of the system, it's a new system for us, and it doesn't, unfortunately, I don't think it magically releases all of the information all at once. So some of them may well have got their information a little later than your school office was open. So we did ask them to phone today, but they may phone tomorrow. And we've obviously been very clear with them and tried to guide them, advise them about to think through the phone conversation before you have it. And then you phone up and you introduce yourself. What time do I need to arrive on that first day? Do we need to understand anything about dress codes? Are we required to bring anything other than we know that we need to bring, and to thank you for giving them a place and offering your support? Okay, I can see somebody's got a question.
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the interim head teacher at Wootton Wowen Primary. We have been allocated a student or two students, is my understanding. I've been onto the portal and tried to look at that allocation, but it just keeps telling me that I haven't signed the form. There is no form on there to sign. I've been all around the houses trying to find it. So what I'm concerned about, if somebody is trying to phone me today or tomorrow, I don't even know who they are.
Okay, obviously I can't answer that question. That would be more around with Yorgos. So
okay, I have sent an email. Last night I sent an email explaining the situation, but I've not heard anything back yet.
Can I just intervene there, Mark, just to say that Yorgos will be joining the call. He's really good at responding, and he will get back to you. So please don't worry, you will get a response back from us. So obviously we want to help to support you to make sure you get access as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, right. So that's what they've been asked to around contacting schools. Some of them have say may not have managed to do that today in terms of how that the placements have been released to them, but we would be expecting them to phone you up, and we've obviously spoken to them about how to manage that phone conversation. We've also spoken to them about the school journey. I know sometimes this, if you're new to this, perhaps it doesn't always seem that relevant to you, but you would. Students can sometimes come into schools and start talking about their journey, and you haven't got the other side of the picture with that. So just so that students do know prior to interview for the course that they have there can be a travel time of up to 90 minutes to their placement. This is the same for all ITE providers nationally. You have to set a limit in terms of travel time, and that's 90 minutes for us. It's very rarely 90 minutes, but that the administration team, placement team have to, and the university have to set limits around that. Otherwise, these things become unmanageable. The journey is looked at in terms of the information that they give us, where they live, for example, and the placement team use that information to plan. They use Google Maps and other things to plan the journey and see if that's doable within that time frame. Okay, so that's all worked out. We are quite strict on that. Students do know that they're going to have to travel either by car if they've got one, or by public transport, and that journey it's not going to be the school round the corner from them. So that's made very clear to them from prior to interview all the way through the year at different points. So just so that you've got a heads up about that. We've spoken to them about what they'll need to bring into school. So they need to bring their DBS, they need to bring some kind of proof of identity, maybe their student card, that's have their name on it and their ID on it. And then we've spoken to them about bringing in things, where they can make notes on. We've obviously spoken about tablets and laptops and other devices, and said that you'd need to ask for permission with that. Some schools might let you, some schools might not let you. We've also spoken to them about, simple things about lunch, for example. Some schools are not very close to shops where you can buy lunch, and sometimes you haven't got the time to do that. So we have spoken to them about those sorts of things, what they need to bring on that first day. Again, it's mentioned in another slide, but we have spoken to them about what to wear. So again, if you feel that there is something around that you need to talk to them about prior to them coming into school, because obviously it's always better, isn't it, for them to be clear about that, rather than they come into school and then you need to talk to them. So they've been spoken to them about dressing professionally, and sometimes you have to be very clear about what that means. And I know dress codes can be similar across schools, but they can be different. I know my partner's school, for example, while she's head teacher, they can wear jeans, but I know many schools don't. So that don't assume that they're going to understand that. You might just need to be clear with them about that, perhaps. And we've spoken to them about having a warm coat, because they're going to go outside, either when the fire alarm goes off, playground duty, lunchtime duty, trips, and so on. Okay, so we've spoken to them also about placement documentation. So the key document, really, some of you might be familiar with this, is the progress journal. So students have a progress journal, and that's the key document that runs throughout their placement. It's like a working document, and it provides evidence of their progress through the placement. And there's tasks in there, and when they move on to block placement, there's weekly things that they have to do. We ask them to share that with the class teacher, the placement mentor in the classroom, and perhaps the person who's overseeing those things in school through OneDrive, okay, so that everybody can access it and be able to see what's in it. You obviously, as a class teacher, you're not responsible for that, and it is the student's responsibility to ensure that these things in the progress journal, which we're going to get onto in a minute, are completed. I mean, you might want to remind them if how you're getting on, but it's not your responsibility, obviously, to monitor that. Okay. Okay, we've spoken to them about what to expect on day one. Now, we're not obviously demanding that this happens on day one, but obviously that might happen on day two. That's down to the school and when they can manage these things. But we said these are the sorts of things that you would expect early on. Okay, so perhaps a tour of the school so that they can, help themselves find their way around. They know where the toilets are. They know where the playground is, the dinner hall, maybe the different areas of the school where EYFS is, Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, and so on, where the office is, those sorts of things. Probably have a health and safety briefing, which I'm sure you would give them, a safeguarding briefing, which I'm sure you would give them. They're obviously going to meet their class teacher, and maybe other adults in the class and the children. And this is really key. They will phone up and say what time do I need to come in on my first day. But we've also spoken to them about the need to, once you've done that, to on that first day to negotiate with your class teacher appropriate times to arrive and leave. Now we've set a rough guideline of 8:15 arrival in school till 4 o'clock. So obviously that gives them time to get in plenty of time, help the class teacher in whatever way they may need, setting up the classroom or whatever, and then that there is some time once the children have gone to help with preparing for the next day or whatever it might be. Okay, we're just trying to get across the idea to them that you don't roll in at 9:15 and you've got your coat on as the children are walking out the door. Okay, so I would leave it up to you as a class teacher or your class teachers to negotiate this time with them, but that is a rough guide. Okay, often, and it is a common it's not common across all the students, but it's a if we when you do have the 2 or 3 placements that don't get off to a good start, it's more quite often based around this, that that students are arriving late and leaving early, and then occasionally you might say, well, have you set a time with the student? And that's where it gets a bit shaky. So I would advise, if they don't ask you, to start that negotiation yourself. Okay, and then that just gets them into the habit of understanding that it's not a job where you arrive at 9:15 and you leave at 3 o'clock. There are other responsibilities if you're going to do your best with the children in your class. Okay, so we have spoken to them about, and this is the bit where we sort of very early on in the course, we don't really, or as a year lead, we don't talk about professionalism, because that's sort of assuming young adults will know what that word means. So we often start talking about the importance of attendance, the importance of engaging at university, so that when we start talking about professionalism on placement, they've got some idea about what we mean. So we've obviously spoken about not using phones in classrooms. I know it sounds blindingly obvious, but we do need to be very clear with them that they can't do that, and that might be something that you talk to them about. We've spoken to them about being proactive, and so that it's not just about sitting at the back of the class and waiting to be told what to do. It's about being a bit brave and trying to, if you're a bit worried or anxious about that, sort of trying to overcome that a little bit. And that if you're not sure what to do, because teachers are very busy, all those years ago when I had students in my classroom, you're busy and sometimes you forget to sort of say, oh, I'd like you to do this and I'd like to do that. So we've said, make sure that if you're unsure what to do, you do ask. Okay, but it's really important that you show that you're engaged and you're committed and you're interested in working with, being with children and working with them and talking to them and so on. Okay, and just being there, willing to support the teacher. So we've spoken to them about that side of things. We also speak to them about social media, around things of the obvious things about not posting or talking specifically about individuals, whether those children are adults, on social media, but also in a broader sense, being aware of what they're posting online about themselves, whether when they've been out or on holiday and so on. They have that all the way through the course, but we just give them an extra reminder while they're on placement. So then we've shared them, told them what to do on the preliminary days. This is what you do. You've got phone call. This is what you might expect on the first day. You need to negotiate your arrival times and your leaving times. And then over the course of the visiting days, there'll be things that they will need to do. So early on, they're going to need to share the OneDrive folder with their progress journal in it, as I've mentioned. And then there's specific tasks that we've asked them to complete. There are 7 tasks in all that we've asked them to complete. Again, that's not your responsibility as a class teacher to manage that, but they may be asking you questions about that, and asking to talk to you about certain things, and asking to look and observe certain lessons. Okay, so we're going to come to those bits in a bit. The other thing that we've mentioned to them they need to do is about logging attendance, but Yorgos is going to talk to you about how you can verify and validate their attendance. So I'm going to leave that for now. And then, really importantly, we've spoken to them about what to do. Hopefully there won't be lots of this, but what to do if they are so ill they can't get out of bed is always the phrase that I use, and they can't come into school. So if you've had students before, you may be aware of this. Sometimes university is very different, school and college is very different. So students, there are processes for informing us of their absence, but at school, understandably, it has to be a little bit stricter, because you're expecting people to come in and there are children, waiting to be taught and looked after and all those things. So if you can help us by being very clear with them, if the process is, for example, that you phone the deputy head and you have to speak to the deputy head and not leave a message, you can't email, you can't phone the school office, you have to phone the deputy head and talk to them. That's I remember that was a policy when I was deputy in school. They just need to emphasize that. Again, sometimes you do get students who may be ill and then they email, and people miss that because they're expecting to be phoned up. So that's that to be clarified about. So these are all the preliminary tasks that we're asking them to do. So as I said, there are 7. You don't need to be reminding them to do it. I mean, you can if you remember, but it's not your job. It's the student's job to be proactive to get these completed. And we've spoken to them about planning their visiting days, and when are they going to do these tasks. It's no good leaving all these tasks to the last visiting day, because you won't get it done. So you're going to have to plan how you manage completing all of these over the dozen or so days that they have. So there's a safeguarding task. So they have to ask about safeguarding in school and what are the particular pertinent points to safeguarding in that particular school and that particular community. So they may be asking you some questions around that, and if they do, you will know what that's about. They do a behaviour task, so that's looking at school behaviour policies around systems, routines, and values, and how those play out in the classroom. There's a professional behaviours task, so that's really about their knowledge about professionalism, but their role as a student in the classroom and in the school, and what does that mean. There's a learning environment task, which speaks for itself. So they're looking at the learning environment in the classroom and around the school and making some notes around that. Lesson observations. So we asked them to undertake 3 lesson observations around a core subject, foundation subject, and a phonics lesson. Okay, so no, they'll be doing lots of observations. I know that. Well, lots of watching and joining in. I know that. But we do ask at one point, or they will ask at one point, can I just sit back and watch this lesson? So I'm really focused on what's going on. So there's those 3 observations and then those 4 tasks. And so there they are. Let's observe a phonics lesson. And just so that don't have to worry about it too much, because as a class teacher, you don't necessarily have to be involved in this. But at the end of the visiting days, the lead mentor, somebody like me, will arrange to do a sign-off meeting with the student, and they will check to see that all those preliminary tasks are done. They're clear about what their teaching's going to be when they move into their block placement, and they've got some planning to show me, and then I'm signing that off and saying, yes, you're ready to teach. And obviously on your side, You don't need to sign anything, but hopefully by that point you think, yes, you've known the student, you're talking about what they're going to teach and all those sorts of things, and that you're okay with them being ready to teach when the block placement starts. Okay, and that's the sign-off meeting that I've spoken about there. Okay, again, you don't need to be involved in that. The lead mentor may copy you into an email so you know that's being arranged, but it's not something that you have to be involved in or do anything for. Okay, we also asked them, I think we're getting to the end now, we also asked them to create some this is towards the end now, towards the end of their visiting days when you do the sign-off meeting, and they'll be creating some targets that will be the first set of targets that will last them the first week of block placement. Okay, and then after that, through weekly meetings, you'll be setting new targets with them, but they need some targets to start off with. My advice, you're all used in schools to setting targets, but students aren't. You've got to keep them narrow and achievable within a week. You don't have to couch it in lots of educational language. It can just be simple things like ensure that you use the dojo reward system in class. It can be things like, maybe they will be doing some team teaching. Let's just pick something around the use of commas in a list with you in their first week, and you want them to understand the subject knowledge around that. So it might be to understand how commas are used in the list. So keep it very narrow and simple for that first week, and then the same for the other weeks following on from that. Some examples of targets there. We've explained to them, as I said at the beginning, there'll be another placement briefing that's about the block placement. Okay, and those are just next steps that we've told them to share their folders. Okay, I'm going to let Anne and Yorgos do their bit next, and then if we've got any questions, you can stay on while other people leave if they haven't got any questions, and we can answer those for you.
Great, thank you, Mark. Can I just ask you to stop sharing, then I can share my slide, if that's okay. Thank you. Here we go. Hopefully you can all see these and give me a shout when you can. It all seems to take a little while to get this to come up.
Yeah, I can see that, Anne.
Oh, good, because I can't at the moment, so that's really good, isn't it? It takes a little minute. I just wanted to say thank you as well to everybody on the call. I know I've spoken to some of you in person, so just wanted to thank you for your engagement as well in supporting our BA Year 1s. In the chat bar, I have actually put in the links for the Primary Partnership website, and I've also put in the links for the BA Year 1 the page on the website as well. So a lot of the information, Mark's slides that he shared today are already up on the website, and we'll just add a recording as well, so you can dip in and out of this as you need to. I've just put this link in here as well. It's not in the chat bar, but you can access it through the Primary Partnership pages. This is our mentoring section, so it might be useful for you to have a look at that. I know there is a little bit more expectation around the BA Year 1 mentoring, but I'm going to go through that now and hopefully can make it seem, it's just part of the business as usual element of our practice, and hopefully our lead mentors will be able to support you more succinctly when they come into schools and support associate teachers as well. As Mark said earlier, the DFE, the reduction on the 20 hours funding for training. I know that had a significant impact on schools wanting to engage right at the beginning of the autumn term. So if you've come on board now, because obviously there isn't that expectation of doing those 20 hours of funding of training, then that's great. You can still apply for the funding. I believe it's if you can apply until the 31st of April. So effectively, if you or your placement mentors, or if you're a placement mentor or professional mentor, are engaging in our training, the stipulation is that you have a direct association with the associate teacher. So if you've attended the briefing tonight and you're going to be working with one of our BA Year 1 associate teachers, you can apply for that hours training that you're getting tonight, and also when you're working with our lead mentors in school. So it is worth perhaps considering, and if you want any more information, please have a look at our mentoring section on the partnership page. So as I said, Mark's gone through the new terminology about university tutors now being lead mentors in school, and we're really here to support you to help make sure that your associate teachers, have the best experience they possibly can. They are, I think, when I've been saying to schools, we know it is their first placement. They might be very nervous, and all those things that Mark and Kenise and the team have been sharing with associate teachers to be, help them to be prepared to come in school. But they might be a little bit shy, so I know that you'll be there nurturing and supporting them as well. But we also want to see them using their initiative as well. So to support you in mentoring in terms of our expectations, we have got the calendar again, it's on the mentoring link, and it just really outlines the days that we have available. There's no mentoring sitting outside for live content in terms of our interaction with you, apart from when you are face-to-face with lead mentors. But we have a very useful platform which we've set up, and it's called our Initial Teacher Training CPD platform. It's a program we've put together. So this originally was the 20 hours stipulated funding that we had our mentors had to complete, and some of you on the call might have already completed that training, which is great and very supportive. But it is optional for you to engage with. But there are elements that we do want you to work with us on to help to support you and our associate teachers on this particular placement. So all the details about mentoring are available in terms of that optional training. To gain and access that optional training, we have set up a Bright Space platform, and you've got the links here to register, either to register yourself to have access to that platform, or if you're already on the platform and have completed some of the training, you can access the link directly to the portal, and you'll be able to log in. We're just really expecting that you engage with 3 elements of the platform. One of those, you can see I've highlighted here, and I'm just going to go through each of them. So it's hopefully going to be fairly straightforward for you to see how they kind of interact with each other. So the Unit 5 is looking at our BCU coach model, which if you were a mentor, an experienced mentor, you will have already engaged. I've just completed my assessment for the MPQ LTD, and one of the things we were definitely looking at is how to mentor and how to support mentors in school. So this coaching model will help, I think, to give that high quality, high leverage feedback, and to give that supportive feedback and constructive conversation with your associate teachers. So we would just expect you to have a look at that and just read through some of it. It's a very useful, very straightforward guide. And I know certainly when I'm going to be going into schools, I'll probably have a copy of that and be able to just have a look through and to be able to give that better in-depth feedback as well for our associate teachers. So we're expecting you to have a look at that if you can before the associate teacher starts their block placement. So there is a lot of lead-in time for you to work with our lead mentors, just to say, well, can you just explain what the model is and how can I use that to support my associate teachers? Unit 6 is very much business as usual. So if you've worked with us before, it's the lesson observation, the joint lesson observation, the review meeting and the progress meeting, and in fact engaging with this school mentor briefing. So that is all part of the package of that mentoring support. So a really pivotal part of the mentoring support is how you're also engaging with the associate teacher. If you're working directly with them in the classroom, it's going to be that constant communication with them and supporting and hopefully encouraging them to use their initiative as well, and to develop that confidence in the classroom to work with one-to-one perhaps, and then moving to groups, and then hopefully towards the end of their block placement to actually having a go at teaching the whole class. It's a really important element of their practice to gain some of that important experience. And then the other element is our intensive training and practice, these ITAPs, which Mark mentioned earlier. And really we're looking at, this again is on our Brightspace platform, but there is also a copy on the partnership website under the BA Year 1 section, where you can see we're going to be looking at behaviour, routines and transitions, a really key and instrumental part of teaching for associate teachers to get to grips with that granular, that pivotal detail, to support them to be able to manage behaviour in the classroom following school policy, and just that basic, really looking at that basic level of what behaviour is and how they can take those small steps to managing behaviour themselves effectively. The other ITAP training that our associate teachers will be engaging with, and that will be in May, is with obviously phonics, a very key element in our associate teachers development currently. So that will be able to support, I think it's the phonological, it's basic sounds, phonemes that they'll be learning in that particular ITAP. So the associate teachers will be aware of what they have to do with ITAPs, and obviously you can engage through your lead mentor. They can also support you and to remind you of where to go and find that information as well. The phonics input isn't actually on the website yet, but it will be coming soon. Just to give you further detail, if you have worked with us in previous years, we have revamped our partnership website to be more in line with our new Brightspace platform, but also to make it much easier, we hope, to access all of the key information. So if you've got a BA Year 1 associate teacher, when you go onto the BAQTS section, you go into click on the BA Year 1 and it will have all of the necessary detail that you have to engage with and to be able to support your associate teacher. And then this is just a link, the main link again for our primary partnership website, where you can access, as I said, the mentoring. We've also got a notice board to help you as well, which comes out every week when we have our associate teachers in school. It's a shout out. Some of you might have seen it before. I know Yorgos also sends it through the portal too. So it's just to give you a regular update of things to look out for if you replace a mentor, to celebrate great work and great practice, and for you as well to be able to, add your commentary as well if you'd like to celebrate the work of your associate teachers in school too. And just to finish, I know Mark, we did say perhaps we talked about this earlier. We are looking for some additional BA Year 1 placements, and I know that perhaps either myself or Yorgos or other colleagues have been contacting your school and saying, we'd love you to be able to support our BA Year 1s. We have a handful that we need to place still. So if there's any capacity at all you have, particularly if you're a Birmingham based setting, we would really appreciate that you were able to work with us. And hopefully by seeing the information tonight, you can see just about the content and about how much your engagement is going to be with the associate teachers, but equally very importantly how you can work effectively with our lead mentors in university as well. So just finally, this is a mentoring email link which will help you if you have a particular question about mentoring. I will also put my email address in the chat bar as well if you have any specific questions. But thanks very much again for supporting our associate teachers. I know they're going to have a great time, and I know it's going to be very rewarding, and it's going to be a steep learning curve for some of them, but they're ready to come into school. They're ready to see exactly and to have that experience. So thank you very much from all of us on the team. Thanks, Mark. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So Yorgos, I think I can see you there.
I'm around. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Yorgos. I'll hand over to you.
No worries. Thank you very much. And thanks, Anne. I've just put a little message in the chat with some relevant contact details, the link to the partnerships website that Anne has shared, and some of the bits that I'm going to talk about in a moment. I'm just going to bring up my screen. If you haven't met me properly yet, my name is Yorgos. I work for our partnerships and placements team. You would have likely got emails from me, however, if you are in this call, to invite you to come here today. And for any of the admin questions behind our primary placements. I just want to take the last 5 minutes today to briefly talk to you about the new placement communication portal that we've introduced this year. If you have worked with us in previous terms or have had other students this year on placement, you should already be familiar with this, but it might be just a quick refresher at this point. And if you're new to working with us at this point, then this might be the first time you're looking at it. The PCP portal is basically a kind of a one-stop shop for you to access any information about your trainees on placement with you. I've shared my screen. I hope that you can see that. This is the way that portal looks like for you. When we do send out confirmation for you to let you know the trainees that are allocated with you and the details about the placements, we do also always give you access to this portal. The way to register with it is by just using this register button here, and that normally will always happen with the school office email address, and that just makes sure that there's a school account associated with the portal that will enable you to actually get onto it. So after you've done that registration, you should get into the portal and it'll look something like this. I've just logged into it as a sort of test school at the moment. I'm just going to go through briefly what we'd like you to do in the portal the first time that you do log into it. If you look at the menu at the top, you will see that there's some options here. And the first thing that we'd like you to do is have a look at the school profile. This profile basically stores all the relevant information about your school that we have on record to make sure that, yeah, basically we've got accurate information about the settings that we place our trainees in. The first thing you can do in this profile section is actually to add a welcome message. So that's an opportunity for you to share some information about your setting or about what students can expect on their first day with the trainees that are allocated to your school. So whatever you put into this welcome message section here, that will display to students on our end before they actually come out on placement with you and before they contact you. So if there's some information that you want to share, this is a great place to do so. The next thing that you might want, or that we ask you to do in the school profile section, is to actually take a look at that information here at the bottom. Obviously, this is a test section here, but this should be populated with accurate information about your school. If it is the case that any of this information is incorrect or out of date, you've got the option to fill out this change report form here at the bottom. So you can just draft a little message to us and let us know if something is wrong. Maybe your offset rating is updated and we didn't catch it, or actually you have recently academized and there's some change that needs to happen here. You can just let us know through this and we can then get that updated on our records. After we're okay and we've made sure that our school profile is up to date, we would like to ask you to take a look at the contact section. This is important to make sure that we have an awareness of all the staff that are working with our trainees in school. The contact that should already be set up for you is always the school admin contact, and that should be your school office email address, the one that you use to register with the portal. After you've done that registration, we ask you to add at least one more contact to this contact list by using this Add New Contact button, and that is the person that will be assigned the role of school placement coordinator. So if you're here today as a professional mentor, that is likely going to be yourself. The school placement coordinator is the contact that will have access to all allocations for the school, so you'll be able to see all trainees across an academic year, and you are importantly able to sign the partnership agreement in the portal that I'm going to show you in a moment. So you will need to set up a user with this access. The other thing you can do is set up access for all of your placement mentors. So these are the class teachers that will actually be working with the trainees in class. Say if you're a school and you as a professional mentor are the school placement coordinator and you have trainees in a year 1, year 5 class, you may want to set up the class teachers of those classes as placement mentors, because it means that they can also log into the portal and see student details, which might be quite handy. After you've set up access in here, we want to go to the last section that's relevant today, which is the student allocation section. Now, it is important at this stage that you have set up that coordinator access, because for the first time, you will need to look at this section as the placement coordinator and not from the school office account. So you can see I'm looking at this as my test coordinator here at the moment, and I have got the option here to look at the partnership agreement. If you log in for the first time, it will ask you to sign the partnership agreement. So rather than view, it will say sign here. And before you do that, you won't be able to see any of the trainee details. So as the coordinator, we ask you to log in, sign the partnership agreement here. Once you've done that, every user of the portal is then going to be able to see this view student option. And I'm just going to click on that now. And that gives you a kind of brief overview of all the trainees that are allocated. So we can see, obviously, this is a test version, but it should say the name of your trainee here, what classroom they are in, what type of placement this is, so an SBT1 for our BAs that we're talking about at the moment. You can then use this green line here to further expand that, and it will give you a little calendar sort of breakdown of all the dates that the student is out on placement with you, so you've got it all handy in one section. And the other thing that you have the option to do here is to download the student's safeguarding certificate. So I'm just going to click on this now. This is, as I said, just a demo option, but what it will give you is a letter of assurance with the student's DBS details and a signature that ensures that we have completed all the relevant safeguarding checks for that student for your single central record. So you've got all the information handy in here. The thing that we ask you to do on this page is just to take a look at the students and ensure that that matches the offers that you've made and that these allocations are correct. And then after you've added your placement mentors in the contact list, to please add the placement mentors to the individual trainees in your classroom. So I'm looking at the student in my year 2 class at the moment. So what you can do by clicking on this change mentor option here is to actually add from this drop-down menu anybody in your contact list as the mentor for this student. So if say the placement mentor is the class teacher in my year 2 class, I will be adding that person and I can update that here. And that just makes sure that we have an accurate record of who in school works with which trainee, and we can make sure that we send out relevant updates about training or mentoring to all of the mentors that are allocated to students. That's just a kind of brief overview of what the portal does for you. If you ever do have any questions about it, there's a how to use the portal section here, which has a long guide with all sorts of FAQs that may help you, but we're always happy to support with that. And that's where you can use the contact us option. So you'll find my contact details and that of various other people in the team, depending on the nature of your query. Before I hand you over to Mark to just conclude for today, I just want to briefly touch upon the timesheets that Mark has mentioned. So if you've supported students with us in the past, you will know that students used to have a paper register as part of their progress journal that they would get you to sign off at the end of the placement. We have now moved to a bit more sort of digital way of doing that. So our students actually complete a timesheet at the end of every week where they log their attendance for the school. We ask that this is signed off by the school. This could either be done centrally by the professional mentor for all of the trainees, or it could be done by each of the placement mentors, class teachers for each for their individual trainees. You don't need any login. It's not a complicated process. What's going to happen is that the student's supposed to fill that every week, and as soon as the student submits their timesheet, you will get an email that will look something like this. It will just say to you, this student has completed a timesheet for this week, and there'll be a link in that email. And once you click on that link, you'll be able to see a summary of what that student has filled out on their timesheet, and you can either approve it or reject it by giving the student some comments if your record of their attendance doesn't match theirs. And we do just ask you to keep an eye on this from time to time. You can either approve these weekly or pile them until the end of the placement and approve or reject all of them together. They will be open until the end of the placement. This little overview of how to complete these timesheet approvals will be sent out to professional mentors to circulate with schools, just so that you do have it if you ever need it. And as with any other system, I'm available to support you, and my direct email address is also in the chat. That's just a couple of the new things that we've introduced this year that always seems like a lot of information, but we have found, and partners have agreed with this, that actually once you do get used to it, it makes the process a little bit more easy and streamlined. So we're hoping that it will actually support us all going forward. If you do have any questions, do let me know about it. I'm happy to support, but I'm going to hand you back over to Mark now to finish off today.
Okay, great. So thank you, everybody. I'm not sure if that lady was the head teacher. Is it Wootton Primary was still here? Maybe you just want to have a chat to Yorgos at the end. But is there anybody else?
I am still here, yes.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll just clear everybody else, and then has anybody else got a question that they'd like to ask? Because if not, you can obviously thank you very much for coming, and you know that's the end of that bit.
Stop the recording, Mark, as well. That'd be perfect. Thanks, everybody.